You were there when she disappeared, the little girl told the millionaire. Then moments later, a miracle happens. Comment. What you thought of this story with a score from 0 to 10, and tell me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know if you enjoyed my story and get to know you better, so subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The Tuesday morning in Cedar Creek, California, dawned with the gentle warmth typical of a coastal December when Kian Moore, at 42, crossed the town's central square with his firm, determined steps. The winter sun was mild on the asphalt, and the aroma of coffee from the morning diners mixed with the scent of sea salt that characterized that time of year. Kian adjusted his Italian tie as he looked with pride at the buildings his construction company had erected around the square, monuments of concrete and glass that testified to 4 generations of the Moore family's work. His routine was always the same, a morning walk through the square before heading to the office, a habit he'd kept since taking over as president of the company after his father's sudden departure 10 years ago. Kian liked to watch the city wake up, to see the merchants opening their shops, the children running to school, the retirees gathered on the benches under the century-old oak trees. That morning, however, something different was about to happen. It was a small, trembling voice that made him stop abruptly near the central fountain. A little girl, about 4 years old, approached him with hesitant steps. Her bare feet were dirty, a faded blue dress hung loosely on her thin frame, and her messy brown hair framed a distressed little face. In her small, dirty hands, she held a photograph, yellowed with time. "You were there when she disappeared," the girl said, raising her large, frightened eyes to Kian as she pointed to the image trembling between her fingers. Kian felt the world stop around him. In the photograph the child held, he immediately recognized the face of Evelyn Sinclair, his ex-fiancée, who had mysteriously disappeared 5 years ago, on the eve of the wedding that should have been the happiest day of their lives. Evelyn, with her wavy brunette hair and those mesmerizing green eyes that had captured him from their very first meeting. How did you get this photo?" Kian asked, crouching down to the girl's level, his heart racing in his chest. "My name is Lily," the child replied, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her dress. "A lady with grey hair gave me this photo 2 weeks ago at the bus station. She said I should give it to the man of the tall buildings." Kian looked more closely at the girl. There was something in those eyes that disturbed him, a strange familiarity he couldn't explain. "And who is the woman in the photo to you?" he questioned, still trying to process the surreal situation unfolding before him. "She's my mother, Clara," Lily replied, her voice breaking slightly. "She disappeared when I was 2. The lady said you would know where she is." The name Clara echoed in Kian's mind like a distant sound. He didn't know anyone by that name, but there was something in the way the girl pronounced the words, in the cadence of her voice, that awakened confusing memories. He looked at the photograph again, noticing for the first time a small crescent-shaped scar on Lily's left hand, a distinctive mark that shone palely in the sunlight. "Where do you live? Who takes care of you?" Kian asked, concern growing in his chest as he noticed the child's state of neglect. Lily lowered her eyes, nervously shuffling her bare feet. I don't have a home. The lady who brought me said you would help me find my mother." Kian felt a pang in his heart. The situation was completely bizarre, but there was something about this child that awakened a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years. Besides, the photograph of Evelyn in Lily's hands was a piece of a puzzle he had been trying to assemble since his fiancée's disappearance. "Are you hungry?" he asked, noticing the girl's evident thinness. Lily nodded shyly. Kian extended his hand, and to his surprise, she took it without hesitation, as if trusting him instinctively. Together they walked to a nearby bakery where Kian bought pastries, milk and fruit for the child. As Lily ate voraciously, he watched her every move, searching for clues to her true identity. It was during this impromptu breakfast that Lily revealed strange details about Kian's life. "You like coffee with brown sugar," she said suddenly, while chewing a piece of a pastry. "And you're afraid of butterflies." Kian almost dropped the cup he was holding. This was extremely specific information that only very close people knew. Evelyn had known about his childhood fear of butterflies and his preference for brown sugar in his coffee, a quirk he had kept since childhood. "How do you know that?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Lily shrugged. "My mother told me. She said you were a good man, that you built beautiful houses for people to live in." Kian's heart sped up even more. Clara, Lily's mother, knew intimate details of his life. Could Clara and Evelyn be the same person? The idea seemed absurd, but the evidence was beginning to accumulate in a disturbing way. He decided to take Lily to his mansion in the city's upscale neighborhood, an imposing two-story building surrounded by well-tended gardens. During the car ride, Lily observed everything with childish curiosity, asking questions about the passing buildings and showing a surprising knowledge of the history of Moor construction. Upon arriving at the mansion, they were greeted by Agnes, the family's housekeeper for 3 decades. The 55-year-old woman, always so serene and controlled, had a completely unexpected reaction upon seeing Lily. Her face visibly paled, her hands trembled, and she murmured something low that Kian couldn't quite comprehend. "Mrs. Agnes, this is Lily," Kian introduced. "She'll be staying with us for a few days while we try to locate her family." Agnes looked at the girl with an expression that mixed surprise and something that looked like fear. "The sins of the past coming home," she whispered, so low that Kian barely heard. "What do you mean?" "Do you know this child?" Kian questioned, noticing the housekeeper's strange reaction. Agnes shook her head quickly, composing herself. "No, Mr. Moore. It must be my imagination. It's just that she reminds me of someone, but it must be a coincidence." For the rest of the day, Kian watched with growing perplexity the interactions between Lily and Agnes. The housekeeper avoided being alone with the girl, and whenever Lily approached, Agnes found an excuse to leave the room. There was a tension in the air that Kian couldn't understand. Lily, for her part, seemed to know the house as if she had been there before. She knew where the kitchen was, found the bathroom without needing to ask, and even mentioned that the living room looked better with the curtains open, exactly Kian's preference, which Agnes had known for years. That evening, as he prepared a guest room for Lily, Kian couldn't stop thinking about the strange coincidences that had marked the day. The photograph of Evelyn, the specific knowledge about his life, Agnes's disturbing reaction, and above all, the growing feeling that this girl was not a complete stranger. Before going to sleep, Lily asked to see her mother's photograph again. Kian watched her study the image with the intensity of someone trying to memorize every detail, as if afraid the photo might disappear during the night. "Do you think you'll be able to find my mom?" she asked, her big eyes shining with hope. "I'll try," Kian promised, not knowing that this promise would lead him down a path of discovery that would shake the foundations of everything he thought he knew about his own life. That night, Kian couldn't sleep. He stood on his bedroom balcony, watching the stars and trying to understand how an unknown girl could carry so many fragments of his past. On the other side of the house, Agnes also remained awake, and he could hear her, pacing nervously in the hallway as if something was tormenting her deeply. The next morning brought a tense atmosphere to the Moore mansion. Kian woke up early, disturbed by confusing dreams where Evelyn's image merged with Lily's, creating an emotional labyrinth that left him more distressed with each passing hour. When he came down for breakfast, he found the girl already awake, sitting in the kitchen with Agnes, who seemed visibly nervous. "Good morning," Kian greeted, immediately noticing how Agnes avoided his gaze. The housekeeper, always so organized and punctual, had burned the toast and spilled coffee on the counter. Behaviors, completely out of her usual pattern. Lily smiled shyly and pointed to the cup Agnes had prepared for Kian. She put brown sugar in it. Just how you like it, the girl said matter-of-factly. Kian froze mid-motion, the cup suspended in the air. He had never mentioned his preference for brown sugar in Lily's presence the night before, and Agnes always used regular white sugar. How did the child know exactly what was in the cup just by looking? "Lily, how do you know it's brown sugar?" he asked, sitting down at the table. "By the smell," she answered simply. "My mom always said you liked the sweet, dark smell of brown sugar in your coffee." Agnes dropped a spoon on the floor with a clatter, the metallic noise echoing through the silent kitchen. Kian watched the housekeeper's reaction with growing suspicion. There were secrets being kept in this house, and he was determined to uncover them. After breakfast, Kian took Lily to see the mansion's gardens. During the walk, the girl demonstrated knowledge of details about the plants that not even he knew. She knew that the red roses were his late mother's favorite, that the century-old mango tree in the backyard produced the sweetest fruit in February, and that there was a hidden stone bench behind the hedge where a special someone used to sit and read. "Who told you about these things?" Kian questioned, increasingly disturbed by the revelations. "Mommy Clara. She said this place was important, that one day I would understand why." At that moment, a familiar horn sounded at the property's entrance. Kian immediately recognized the sound of his sister Diana's car, returning from a 3-month stint in Miami, where she had been organizing a company event. Her arrival wasn't scheduled for that week, and Kian felt a knot in his stomach as he imagined how he would explain Lily's presence. Diana Moore, 38, entered the main hall with her characteristic energy, pulling a suitcase and talking excitedly about the business in Miami. Her cheerful voice, however, died abruptly when her eyes met Lily, who was playing silently on the living room rug. The silence that followed was deafening. Diana dropped her suitcase with a thud, the color completely draining from her face. Her hands trembled visibly as she approached the girl with slow, cautious steps, as if seeing a ghost. "Kian," she whispered, her voice broken with emotion, Where did you find this child? Why are you reacting like this?" Kian asked, alarmed by the intensity of his sister's reaction. Diana crouched in front of Lily, studying every feature of her face with an almost desperate intensity. "She's identical. My God, Kian. She is absolutely identical to Evelyn's childhood photos that are stored in the attic." Kian's heart stopped for a moment. "What photos?" "The photos Evelyn brought when you got engaged. Remember, she showed me and Mom her whole collection of childhood pictures, saying she wanted you to know her story." Diana gently touched Lily's face. "This girl, she doesn't just look like Evelyn. She is Evelyn at 4 years old." Lily watched the conversation with childish curiosity, not fully understanding the emotional storm her presence was causing. "Did you know my mommy?" she asked innocently. Diana looked at Kian with clear accusation in her eyes. "Kian Moore, where is Evelyn? What are you hiding from me? Why is her daughter here?" "I don't know where she is," Kian exploded, his frustration and confusion finally boiling over. "Lily showed up at the square yesterday with a photo of Evelyn saying her mother's name is Clara and she disappeared 2 years ago." The argument was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Agnes, who had appeared in the room carrying a tea tray, clearly trying to break up the conversation. The expression on her face, however, revealed that she had heard every word of the argument. "Mrs. Agnes," Diana said, standing up and facing the housekeeper, "you know this child, don't you? I saw how you reacted yesterday when she arrived." Agnes hesitated, the tray trembling slightly in her hands. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me," Diana pressed. I've worked in this company for 15 years. I know every expression on your face. You know something about Lily and about what happened to Evelyn. Kian watched the housekeeper closely, noticing how she avoided looking directly at Lily. There was fear in her eyes, but also something that looked like guilt. "If you know something and don't tell me, Agnes, I swear I'll fire you today," Kian threatened, his patience finally running out. Agnes placed the tray on the table with trembling hands. I promised to keep a secret. I promised her I would keep it." "For whom?" Kian and Diana shouted almost simultaneously. "For Clara," Agnes whispered, tears starting to roll down her face. "She made me swear I would protect the girl if anything happened to her." The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Lily had stopped playing and was watching the adults with concern, sensing the anguish hanging in the air without understanding its cause. "Agnes," Kian said slowly, "are you telling me you know Lily's mother? That you know a woman named Clara?" The housekeeper nodded miserably. "Clara? She came to me 2 years ago, said she needed help, that someone was threatening to hurt her and her daughter. She asked me to take care of Lily if something happened to her." "And where is Clara now?" Diana asked. "I don't know," Agnes cried. "She disappeared 6 months ago. She left Lily with a foster family in Maplewood, but the girl ran away last week. A lady with grey hair brought her here." Kian felt the world spin around him. "What lady? Who brought Lily?" Agnes wiped her eyes with her apron. "I don't know. The girl just said the lady gave her the photograph and told her to look for the man of the tall buildings." Diana crossed her arms, her expression growing harder. "Kian, I want the truth. Did you know Evelyn used the name Clara? Did you know she had a daughter?" "No!" Kian shouted. "I didn't know any of this." "Evelyn disappeared on the eve of our wedding without any explanation. Then explain how a 4-year-old child knows intimate details about your personal life," Diana retorted. "Explain how she knows this house as if she's lived here before." At that moment, Lily stood up and walked to a specific bookshelf in the room, removing a poetry book which revealed a small, secret compartment behind it. From inside the compartment, she pulled out a small music box that began to play a familiar melody when opened. Both Kian and Diana immediately recognized the music. It was the song Evelyn used to hum when she was happy, a melody she said she learned from her mother as a child. "How did you know that was there?" Kian asked, approaching the girl with trembling steps. "Mommy taught me," Lily answered simply. "She said this music was special, that I should keep it forever." Kian took the music box with trembling hands, vividly, remembering the day Evelyn had hidden it there, saying it would be a special secret just between the two of them. He had never told anyone about that hiding spot, not even Agnes or Diana. The final revelation of that devastating morning came when Diana went up to the attic and returned with a photo album that belonged to Evelyn. Page after page confirmed what she had initially observed. Lily was absolutely identical to Evelyn as a child, not just similar, but a perfect copy. "Kian," Diana said, her voice filled with accusation and pain, "either you tell me the whole truth now, or I'm leaving this house and this company for good. I can no longer trust a brother who hides such huge secrets." Kian looked at Lily, who had gone back to playing on the rug, completely oblivious to the emotional storm her presence had unleashed. The girl was humming the melody from the music box quietly, and in that moment he realized his life would never be the same. The truth was there, fragmented into pieces he couldn't yet fully assemble, but a certainty grew in his heart. Lily was not just a lost child, she was the key to unlocking the mystery of Evelyn's disappearance and discovering secrets that several people were apparently desperately trying to hide. The days following the confrontation between Kian and Diana were marked by a growing tension that seemed to consume every corner of the mansion. Diana had temporarily moved into a guest room, refusing to return to her apartment until all truths were revealed. Her distrust of her brother grew with each passing hour, fueled by small details that made no sense and evasive answers that only intensified her suspicions. Kian, meanwhile, was in a state of constant anguish. He spent his nights awake, pacing the house like a tormented ghost, trying to connect the pieces of a puzzle that seemed to grow more complex with each discovery. Lily had become the center of an emotional hurricane that threatened to destroy everything he had built. It was during one of these sleepless nights that Kian decided to go through the office where he kept the company's most important documents. He needed something, anything that could explain the connection between Clara and his life. Lily was sleeping soundly in the next room, but he still locked the office door, fearing his secrets would be discovered by the girl who seemed to know his house better than he did. While he rummaged through drawers full of contracts and financial documents, Lily appeared in the main living room, sleepwalking towards a specific bookshelf. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if guided by an invisible force. Without fully waking up, she began to push a heavy leather armchair, dragging it across the floor with a determination surprising for a 4-year-old. The sound of the chair being dragged alerted Kian, who came out of the office to investigate. What he saw left him paralyzed. Lily had positioned the armchair exactly in front of a specific section of the bookshelf, and still asleep, was climbing onto it with precise movements. Her small hands reached a high point on the shelf and pressed an area that Kian didn't even know existed. A soft click echoed through the silent room, and a section of the bookshelf moved slightly, revealing a secret compartment Kian had never discovered in his own home. Inside the compartment was a small hidden drawer containing carefully stored documents. Kian approached silently, picked Lily up in his arms, and carried her back to bed, where she continued to sleep placidly, as if nothing had happened. He then returned to the living room, his heart pounding violently, and examined the documents the girl had unconsciously revealed. What he found made him feel as if the floor had disappeared from under his feet. Among the papers were contracts proving the existence of a silent partner in Moore Construction, someone who had been receiving 50% of all company profits for over 10 years. The name on the contract was Sebastian Vance, his childhood best friend and best man. But what shocked him most was discovering that all payments to Sebastian were deposited into a bank account registered in the name of Clara Sinclair. Clara wasn't just Lily's mother. She was the secret financial beneficiary of half of his business empire. Kian's hands trembled as he examined document after document, discovering a complex web of financial transactions that had been operating in the shadows for years. Sebastian, whom he believed he had lost contact with long ago, was still his secret partner, using Clara as an intermediary to receive the payments. But the revelations didn't stop there. Among the documents, Kian found copies of birth certificates, name changes, and other legal papers that confirmed his most terrifying suspicion. Clara Sinclair and Evelyn Sinclair were officially the same person. Evelyn had legally changed her name to Clara 2 years before her disappearance, and all this time she had been involved in the secret dealings with Sebastian. The feeling of betrayal that washed over Kian was devastating. The woman he had loved, with whom he had planned to spend the rest of his life, had lied about her identity and participated in a scheme to drain half of his financial resources. Worse, she had disappeared, leaving behind a daughter who apparently knew secrets about his own house that even he didn't. The next morning, Kian confronted Agnes with concrete evidence. The housekeeper, visibly shaken upon seeing the documents, finally broke down and revealed part of the truth she had guarded for so long. "Sebastian threatened to hurt Evelyn and the girl if I said anything," Agnes confessed, tears streaming down her face. He said he knew where she was hiding and that he would do something terrible if I opened my mouth. I was afraid, Mr. Moore. I was so afraid. For how long have you known this? Kian asked, his voice heavy with pain. Since Evelyn disappeared. Sebastian came here the day after the cancelled wedding, said she had run away because she found out about his business deals, that if you knew the truth, you would want revenge. The realization that he had been manipulated for years by people he had trusted blindly left Kian in a state of profound shock. But his anguish turned to panic when Diana arrived at the office that afternoon and found the documents spread across the table. His sister's reaction was explosive. "You've been lying to me for years," she screamed, waving the papers in the air. "Half of the family business is being siphoned off to this woman, and you pretended you knew nothing." "I really didn't know," Kian protested. "I found this out last night." "How can I believe you?" Diana questioned, her voice breaking with emotion. "How can I trust a brother who hides secret partnerships, who lets half the family's assets be stolen, who brings a lost child home without explanation?" Diana grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'm going to my lawyer today. I want to sell my shares in the company. I can no longer be a part of something built on lies." Diana's threat was more than just a financial issue. If she sold her shares to competitors, the entire company's reputation would be compromised. Moore Construction was known in Cedar Creek and the region for its family tradition and honesty. A scandal involving hidden partnerships and financial diversions would destroy 4 generations of work. While dealing with the family crisis, Kian noticed that Lily began to exhibit increasingly disturbing behaviors. The girl would spend hours obsessively drawing the same image, a yellow house with blue windows, always with extremely precise details that seemed to come from real memories. "Where is this house, Lily?" Kian asked, observing another of the girl's detailed drawings. "It's where Mommy used to sing to me," she replied, adding small flowers around the house with a colored pencil. "She said one day we would go back there." Kian studied the drawing carefully. The details were impressive for a 4-year-old. The position of the windows, the shape of the roof, even small decorative elements were represented with architectural precision. It looked more like a technical blueprint than a child's drawing. Determined to find this mysterious house, Kian spent the next few days driving through Cedar Creek and neighboring towns, showing Lily's drawings to people on the street, merchants, public employees. The search became an obsession that consumed his nights and weekends. During this exhaustive search, his mental health began to visibly deteriorate. He lost weight, slept only a few hours a night, and started showing signs of paranoia, distrusting company employees and even old friends who tried to talk to him. It was in Maplewood, a town 40 miles from Cedar Creek, that Kian finally found the house from the drawings. It was exactly as Lily had depicted it. A yellow building with blue windows, located on a quiet street in the town center. The discovery, however, brought more questions than answers. The house had been rented for 2 years to a woman named Clara, who had lived there with a young daughter until she disappeared 6 months ago. The neighbors remembered her as a private person who worked as a seamstress and rarely left the house with the child. She always seemed scared, an elderly neighbor recounted. She would look both ways before stepping outside, as if she were running from someone. The little girl was a sweetheart, always. Drawing birds on the sidewalk. Kian's heart ached when he heard about the bird drawings. Lily still had the habit of drawing birds when she was sad or scared, always repeating that they could fly wherever they wanted. But the most disturbing information came when he learned that Clara had suddenly fallen ill and had to be hospitalized. During her hospital stay, she had given Lily to a local foster family, but the girl had run away a week later, only to be found at the bus station by an unknown lady who brought her back to Cedar Creek. That moment, Kian realized he was at the center of a much more complex plot than he had imagined. Sebastian, Evelyn, Clara, the mysterious lady, and even Agnes. They all seemed to be pieces in a dangerous game where Lily was both the prize and the key to secrets someone was desperately trying to keep hidden. When he returned to the mansion that night, he found Agnes in a state of nervous collapse, pacing the halls and muttering disconnected words. The stress of keeping secrets for so long had finally taken its toll, and the faithful housekeeper who had cared for his family for decades now needed to be hospitalized. Before the ambulance arrived, Agnes grabbed Kian's arm with desperate strength. "He said he would come back," she whispered between delusions. "Sebastian said he would come back for what is his, and now that the girl is here, he'll know where to find her." Agnes's delirious words echoed in Kian's mind throughout the night, creating a state of permanent alert that made him watch every shadow, every strange noise around the mansion. Lily slept soundly in the room next to his, but he couldn't relax, knowing that Sebastian could appear at any moment to claim what he considered his. The morning brought a discovery that would completely change the course of events. While organizing Agnes's belongings to take to the hospital, Kian found a box hidden in the back of the housekeeper's wardrobe. Inside were old photographs, letters, and documents that revealed the most shocking truth of all. The woman he had known as Agnes for 3 years was not the real Agnes. The original housekeeper, who had cared for his family for decades, had died of natural causes 3 years ago, and the person who had taken her place was Hope Vance, Sebastian's sister. She had meticulously studied the Moore family's habits, assuming the identity of the deceased employee with frightening perfection. Among the documents, Kian found the real Agnes's death certificate, dated exactly to the period when he was dealing with the grief of losing his wife and was completely emotionally vulnerable. Sebastian had taken advantage of his fragile state to insert his sister into the house, creating a system of espionage that had lasted for years. The discovery explained how Hope knew so many details about the family routine. She had spent months studying every aspect of the real Agnes's life before assuming her identity. It also explained why she had become so nervous with Lily's arrival. The girl represented a threat to Sebastian's plans. But the most devastating revelation came when Kian found letters exchanged between the Vance siblings, where it was clear they knew exactly where Evelyn was hidden. According to the correspondence, she had not disappeared voluntarily. She had been the victim of an accident that caused severe amnesia, and she now lived in a convent in Northwood with no memory of her true identity. The letters revealed that Sebastian was purposefully keeping Evelyn away from Cedar Creek, fearing her presence could expose the company's financial diversions. He had convinced the nuns at the convent that she was a woman with no family, ensuring she remained isolated while he continued to profit from the secret business deals. Lily was the only connection between Evelyn and her past life. That was why Sebastian had orchestrated the separation between mother and daughter, sending the girl to distant foster families whenever she began to show memories that could lead to the discovery of the truth. In that moment, Kian understood that the mysterious lady who had brought Lily to him had been a messenger for the real Agnes, who had somehow discovered Sebastian's plans before her death and left instructions for the girl to be brought back when the time was right. Determined to reunite his family, destroyed by Sebastian's greed and manipulation, Kian took Lily and they left immediately for Northwood. During the 2-hour drive, he explained to the girl, in language she could understand, that they were going to find her mother. "Will Mommy remember me?" Lily asked, clutching the yellowed photograph she never let go of. "I'm sure she will," Kian replied, hoping he was right. The St. Clara Convent was an old, silent building, surrounded by well-tended gardens where a few nuns walked in prayer. The Mother Superior received them with kindness, but was initially resistant to Kian's pleas to see the woman they knew as Sister Clara. She went through a very severe trauma, the Mother Superior explained. She has no memories of her previous life and has found peace here with us. We don't want to disturb her unnecessarily. It was Lily who broke the nun's resistance. The girl began to quietly sing the melody her mother had taught her, the same song from the music box found in the mansion. The sound echoed through the silent corridors of the convent, and within minutes, a woman with brown hair and green eyes appeared, running down the hall. Evelyn stopped abruptly when she saw Lily. For a moment that felt like an eternity. Mother and daughter looked at each other in silence, as if trying to reconnect fragmented memories. Then, as if a dam had broken, Evelyn fell to her knees and held out her arms. "My little one," she whispered, her voice broken with emotion. "My little Lily." The reunion between mother and daughter was the catalyst for the complete return of Evelyn's memory. Embracing the girl, she began to remember fragments of her past life, the happy years with Kian, the fear she felt when she discovered Sebastian's schemes, and especially the accident that left her with amnesia when she tried to flee the city. "Sebastian found out I knew about the financial diversions," Evelyn explained through tears, still holding Lily. "He threatened me, said he would do something terrible to you if I told Kian the truth. I tried to run away with Lily the night before the wedding, but I had an accident on the road." Kian held Evelyn's hands, feeling the weight of the lost years and the manipulations that had kept them apart. "Why didn't you come looking for me when your memory returned?" "Because I didn't know if you would forgive me," she confessed. "I thought you hated me for running away on the eve of our wedding, and I was afraid Sebastian would carry out his threats if he knew I was alive and had my memory back." The conversation was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Sebastian Vance at the convent. He had followed Kian from Cedar, Greek, realizing his years of manipulation were coming to an end. He appeared in the convent garden, accompanied by two men, clearly desperate to maintain control of the situation. "Kian, my old friend," Sebastian said with a forced smile, "I see you found our dear Evelyn. What a beautiful family reunion." Kian protectively stood in front of Evelyn and Lily. "Sebastian, it's over. I know everything about the diversions, about your sister posing as Agnes, about how you kept Evelyn away from me all these years." "You don't understand," Sebastian retorted, the mask of friendship finally falling away. "This company should have been mine from the beginning. Your father promised me a partnership when we were young. I just took what was rightfully mine. The confrontation that followed was intense but not violent. Sebastian tried to convince Kian that they could continue sharing the profits secretly, that Evelyn could continue using the identity of Clara, that nothing had to change. His proposal, however, was categorically rejected. The resolution came when the convent nuns, terrified by the presence of men shouting in their sanctuary, called the local authorities. Sebastian, realizing he was cornered and that years of documentary evidence were against him, finally gave in. "You can have it all," he said bitterly, "but remember, I destroyed your family once. I can do it again." Sebastian's threats, however, no longer held any power over them. Kian, Evelyn, and Lily were reunited, and the truth had finally been revealed. In the months that followed, they worked together to reorganize the company, return the diverted funds, and rebuild the trust that had been broken. Diana, initially skeptical about Evelyn's return, gradually accepted her sister-in-law back into the family when she realized she too had been a victim of Sebastian's manipulations. Kian's sister cancelled the sale of her shares and dedicated herself to strengthening the company's internal controls. Hope Vance was confronted about her false identity, but surprisingly, she revealed that in recent months she had developed a genuine affection for the Moore family. With everyone's approval, she remained working at the mansion, now under her real identity, helping to care for Lily while Evelyn and Kian rebuilt their relationship. The real Agnes was honored with a memorial in the mansion's garden, recognizing her years of dedication to the family and her final heroic act of ensuring Lily found her way back home. 9 months after that fateful morning in the central square of Cedar Creek, Kian and Evelyn were finally married in a simple ceremony in the mansion's garden. Lily was the flower girl, carrying petals of red roses, the favorites of the grandmother she had never known, but whose memory was now part of the family's story. During the reception, Lily approached Kian with one of her drawings. This time it wasn't birds or mysterious houses. It was a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl, all holding hands under a bright sun. Now the birds don't have to fly away anymore, she said, smiling. They can stay home. Kian held the girl in his arms, watching Evelyn dance with Diana in the garden where years of suffering had finally been transformed into hope. More construction would continue to raise buildings in Cedar Creek, but now it had also built something much more precious, a family reunited by love and strengthened by truth. The yellowed photograph that Lily had carried for so long was framed and placed in the main living room of the mansion, not as a reminder of separation, but as a symbol that even in the darkest moments, true love always finds its way back home. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a score from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.